Thank you so much for joining us today as we talk about mental health during and after this global pandemic that we've been through. And obviously, we all know that COVID has changed us. And I don't think that any of us have ever lived through a global pandemic before. So we don't really have any experience to rely upon to look back and say, oh, well, this is what we do, or this is how we manage or handle things. It's just such a new experience for all of us. And so if you're tuning in and you're thinking like, man, I'm kind of confused about what is going on for me. There's just been a whole lot of different emotions that I've been experiencing. Just welcome to the club of being human, because I think all of us are to some degree or another experiencing that. And through this COVID crisis, we've all had different things that have come to the table. Some people have been through a real economic crisis and financially are really struggling and concerned. Some people have had health crises or had people close to them that have passed away, or just going through the grief and loss for so many different things in this. So the list is endless with all that has happened for us as a human race through this COVID crisis. But one thing we do know for sure, we do know that that there will be implications from going through this, because it is traumatic. There have been hard things that we have all been through. And some people have not just one, not just two, but multiple things that they've had to go through in the middle of this pandemic. And so we do know, based on history from other things that have happened, that trauma impacts us and it changes us. And so that's why it's really good that we're talking about this today. And I hope that some of these things can be practical and helpful so that as quickly as possible, we are all personally dealing with the mental health and traumatic implications of this, and getting help for it if we need to, but just some practical ideas for what to do in the middle of this. I know that my clients, at least who've been talking with me, many of them have felt, I think pretty much everyone has felt super isolated in the middle of this. And that's just not something that we're used to. It's such a healthy coping skill for us to reach out to people when we're in the middle of hard times. And because Corona and quarantine has kept us from being able to do this in the same way. And I know we've gotten really creative, and I'm so grateful for things like this, like Zoom, which I'm pretty sure everyone in the world has downloaded. But we've thought of new and creative ways to connect, but it's still not exactly the same. And so the isolation, a lot of people are explaining that they just feel more irritable and just quicker, shorter fuses, and angry and anxious and stressed, and all of those different feelings that have to do with our mental and emotional health. So I want to go through 7 things today that I think are important in the middle of this, and then afterwards, feel free to ask any questions that you guys might have. And again, just knowing that Care to Change, we want to be here as a resource to help anyone and everyone who is struggling in any way. So the first thing I want to say is that it's really important to recognize and give voice to your feelings. So people have different personalities, and with those personalities come different ways of expressing feelings. But some people have a personality that's like, well, I'm just going to tough it out. I'm just going to be strong and just, put a smile on my face and I'm going to be fine. And that isn't bad. That's a great way of continuing through life, because life is hard. But it also can be detrimental if those feelings just get pushed down and they're not addressed and dealt with. And so I just want to encourage everyone who's listening to make sure that you're giving voice to your feelings. And it is okay to feel negative emotions in the middle of this, because I think everybody has some of those. And you can feel negative emotions and positive emotions at the same time. So for some people, like me, I have 4 kids, and our family has gotten a lot of time together. So on one hand, I'm really grateful for that time that usually we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, and we've had more time together. But at the same time, you know what else it's done for our family? It's brought up more conflict than we've had for a long time, because it's 4 kids and 2 parents who are together all the time and trying to figure out how to navigate life without any breaks from each other. And so I feel like there's both emotions, like this sort of disappointment with man, we've had so much conflict. What's going on? And then also a joy and a gratefulness for the time together. And that's just one example. But, so many people I think have experienced stress in the middle of this. We're getting this constant inundation of news reports and social media about the implications of what this is going to look like economically, health-wise. Will we ever return back to normal? All of these things that just constantly we're hearing. And even if you're a person that doesn't purposefully turn the news on for long periods of time, you just can't go anywhere without hearing. You're listening to the radio, you're checking your email, and it's just popping up. So this level of stress because of that inundation of information can be really hard. Like I said before, family togetherness is great, but it can also cause real highlighting of issues that people have as far as communication or conflict resolution skills, anger. And it's okay to feel those ways. It's okay to say, I'm feeling angry. And part of it is because we've spent so much time together. I'm feeling stressed because I've heard of so many implications for what could happen. I'm feeling nervous because I don't know what this means for my health in the future. I'm feeling worried about my job and the potential of what could happen with that, even if I still have it, or if I've lost it, or if I'm furloughed. What does all this mean? And so giving voice to that's really important, whether it's talking to a trusted support system that you have, even journaling, listening to music, doing things that allow you to express those feelings. Feeling like you're gonna cry. Crying sometimes can be viewed as weakness. A lot of people feel really weird about crying, like, man, I don't want to lose control and then just weep. But I just want to say to you, if you felt periods of times of crying, please know that that's a healthy expression of sadness, and it is okay to do that. And sometimes with anger, well, what do I do? Because I definitely don't want to punch my fist into the wall and hurt myself. And I agree with that. Please don't do that. But there's other things that you can do if you feel like, man, I got to physically express this anger. Sometimes you can just beat up your pillow, beat up your mattress, or take a pool noodle and just beat it to the ground. Sometimes you just need that physical expression. And as long as you're doing it in a way that's not destroying property or destroying yourself, then that might be a good way to release some of that energy, or go for a run, or go lift weights, or do something just to get that anger out. But just to say it's okay that I'm feeling anger. It's okay that I'm feeling stress. It's okay that I'm feeling sadness. It's okay that I feel really lonely right now. And just making sure that you're giving voice to those feelings, and making sure that you're not just stuffing them down inside and keeping them in, because it can be detrimental for sure. It kind of seeps out. Even if we think we're doing okay, it kind of seeps out over time. So please give voice and validate your feelings when you're experiencing them. The second thing I want to point out is that it's really good to focus on the things that we can control. So there's a ton of stuff that we cannot control in the middle of this. There are so many things that we do not know what the outcomes are going to look like, from the stock market to jobs to relationships to our adult parents who are in that category, or a person who's immune compromised, like any of those things. We don't know. We don't have control. But what do we have control over? We do have control over, like I just said, one, expressing our feelings in a respectful but honest, authentic way. And we do have control over choosing our attitude. And I think most of us, as we grow and mature, realize that life is going to be hard, and there are times when things are really difficult. And it's really not about avoiding all difficulties in life, because that just doesn't happen for anyone. But it is about what kind of attitude can we work on choosing. And again, that doesn't mean that you never are going to feel angry. You're never going to feel, it's not that. But it's saying, even in the middle of that, I'm going to choose I'm going to write down 10 things I'm thankful for today. Even if I don't feel it at all, I'm going to write that down in a journal. I'm going to choose gratitude, and I'm going to choose to look at some of those positive things, while at the same time holding on to those negative feelings that I have too, and saying that those are all right as well. We can also choose to give grace to other people. And I think this is a great time for us to be empathetic, and to, I think most people are doing that. I really get that vibe from people, but just saying, like, all of us are in the middle of this. So I'm going to give grace. If you respond in a way that's, frustrated or quick or angry or, judgmental or something, I'm going to try to look internally and say, man, we're all struggling. I bet this person is really struggling. And I know I do this for myself sometimes. I just make up a reason, like I'm in the grocery store and somebody, whatever, bumps into me, and I just make up a reason, like maybe they're just, in a real hurry because they have to get to something, and it could even be something horrible like a funeral. So I'm not going to get upset about that. I'm going to give grace. And I don't know why, but for me, when I make up a reason, sometimes that helps me. So just choosing that attitude of like, I'm going to give grace. I'm going to recognize that we're all in this and we're all struggling, and I'm going to try not to respond just in my own humanness, but I'm going to really work on trying to respond in a way that gives grace to other people. And also just being in the moment. So what's something I can control? I can be right here, right now, and I can look outside and I can see the green and the just the springtime flowers. I can smell the honeysuckle. I can feel like in a sensory kind of way being present in this moment and recognize that there's still goodness, the blue skies, the clouds, the ability that I personally have to take a walk or to give a smile to a neighbor. I don't know about you guys, but for me, like I like to run, and so I've been out doing that a lot just because that's like one thing that we have been able to do. And I've noticed that my neighbors are like the most friendly that they've ever been. Even if they don't like come up close, they're still keeping their social distance. But man, there's a lot of waving going on, like even cars that pass me, there's a lot of waving, and just like, man, it's really nice just to see someone else's face and eyes, and just to be able to give them a wave, or just to, like, I know I stopped by the other day and just said to one of my neighbors, she was outside gardening, I'm like, hey, thank you so much for all these flowers, because I run past this almost every day and it's beautiful, and it just brings a smile to my face. So even looking at like, how can I be present and see the beauty that's around, and choose to just breathe and notice those things. So recognizing and naming your feelings, focusing on the things you can control. This one's big, eliminating toxic influences. And I know that's like an extreme statement. I don't think that we can eliminate all toxic influences, but just looking at like, what are the things that are helping me in this? And then what are the things that are not helping me? So some of my clients have been telling me that like literally they just turned off the news, and they said, I'm going to check one time, once a day, the CDC website, and that's it. I'm not going to try to figure all of this out. I'm not smart enough. There's so much information on all sides, and none of us really fully knows because we haven't been through this before. So I'm not going to listen to all the pontificating about what might happen. I'm just going to check one time to get information, but not all the what ifs. And I think that's a really good way to eliminate the toxicity of that inundation of too much information that can be really tough. And anyone around you or people around you that bring a lot of negativity or worry or complaining or just upset. I know you can't eliminate family members or, people in your life, but just if you can, the people that bring less of that, spending more time with the people that are positive and bringing hope and reminding you of truth. And again, take all this in context. We still are going to have some of those feelings, and in our closest support systems, we need to express those feelings too. But what are we spending the majority of our time on? And there are those people in your life, I'm sure, that are spending the majority of their time trying to think optimistically and be hopeful and be positive. And so finding those people as the ones that you're spending a lot of time with, so that you aren't being negatively influenced. I know for me, if somebody says something to me, sometimes that thought gets lodged in my mind, and it's hard for me to get off of it. So if somebody what ifs something, I can sometimes struggle like, yeah, that's true, what if? And then I just start thinking about it. So, just trying to work on that. And I think too, with our good friends or family members, if we notice that is happening, we can probably just say, hey, let's talk about this, or would it be okay with you if we didn't talk about this just for a little while? And hopefully most people would be okay with doing that. So any way that you can eliminate or decrease those toxic influences, I think is really good. I think next thing is creating healthy routines, and everybody is talking about this, and I think it's huge. structure has been taken from so many of us. We are so used to this routine, and here's what we do, and we get up and we can say, you know, Monday through Friday looks like this, and weekends usually like this, and if you're a person that goes to church, Sundays look like this, and pretty much all of it got wiped off the table for most people. And that can leave us just kind of without mooring, just figuring out, like, what does this look like? So what ways can you set up routines that are helpful in your life to say, you know, these are my most important priorities, and I'm going to work on figuring out a way to set that up and not be rigid about it. One thing I really like is that we can sleep a little bit more according to our body clocks during this time, because, you know, before, when I was driving my kids to school in the morning, I had to get up at 6 and make sure this was done and this was done, and then get them in the car, and here we go. And since they're not in school right now, then I don't have that same level of pressure. And if my body can sleep a little bit later in the morning, then that's a good thing, because sleep is so huge. So, I mean, on one hand, set up routines, but on the other hand, not be rigid about them, and basically say, here's what I want my day to look like, and whatever time that starts, or, you know, if something comes up, I'm not going to be rigid about it, but I'm just going to say I want these major buckets to be happening in my life. So here's the 5 major buckets that I think are important for keeping, you know, in your life. One is sleep. You know, it's the bedrock for emotional regulation. Without sleep, it is so hard to feel, number one, to feel regulated, and number two, sometimes for our brains to not feel cloudy, and for our logic to not, sometimes it just doesn't feel like it's working the same way as when you get a good night's sleep and you wake up and you feel rested. So sleep is fundamental, and just figuring out ways to do that. 2, exercise. Everyone's talking about this too. It's one thing that we still can do. You can go for a walk. You can go for a run if you're physically able to. There's, you know, many videos now that help us to do like strength training, even with just body weight stuff. So you don't even have to have like a full gym in your garage to make that work. But we know that exercise is so beneficial for relaxation, for getting good sleep, for those endorphins that you'll experience from getting your heart rate up. It's good for breathing. It's good for getting that energy out when you're feeling stressed or angry. So exercise is huge to stick in your daily routine, and not that you have to do it 7 days a week, but just saying, like, this is a priority. And then nutrition. I know for me, when I was growing up, I think we underestimated how important what we put in our body is for our functioning and our well-being. And so making sure that when we think about our daily routine, how are we getting nutrition, things that are good for us, into our body? And it's so easy to go and grab a snack that feels like it will taste good. And usually those things come from our pantry and might be loaded down with carbs and other stuff. So how can you pre-plan to make sure that you have stuff that you can grab that's good for you, and that's going to give you some of that protein that you need and some of the other nutrition that you need? So sleep, exercise, nutrition, support. So how are you going to connect? If you live alone, how are you going to make sure that you are talking to somebody and you are connecting and you are sharing? If you, you know, are married and you have kids, how can you make sure that you are connecting with your family during this time and not everybody's on screens? Or how can you make sure that you're connecting with people outside your family, because you might need to talk to them also about what you're feeling and what's going on? So making sure that you're staying connected with the people that care about you and that you feel safe to share with, because that's really important. Even if it's through Zoom or other technology, it's really great to see their faces. If you can see their eyes, that really helps. So, but anyway, texting, talking, anyway, as long as you are connecting. And then to me, one of the very most important things, because I'm a person who really cares about my faith, is connecting with God and keeping that in the routine. And for me, I try to connect with God every day. And usually when I'm structured and routine, it's like written into the schedule, and here's when I do it. And it's just, you know, I feel really good about it. And then sometimes, like even on a vacation for a week, I'll be like, oh, I've got so much time. Like, that's great. And then just like, I'll do it a little later. I'll do it a little later. And for some reason, even though I have more time, less of that happens. And so that's why, you know, if we can do it earlier and kind of giving the first fruits of our time and like really putting in the schedule and saying that's just first priority, it can start the day off so well. It can remind you of hope and truth. and just kind of keep you centered. So those are my 5 main keys to keeping your routine. I think each one of them is important. And all together in doing that, you don't have to be perfect about it, but trying to do those will really help with routine. Next category. So this is number 5, and we've already talked about this, so I'm not going to go on and on, but supporting and connecting with other people. I have a girl who I meet with who is a high schooler, and I just love this so much. She was like, well, I don't really know all of my neighbors, but one thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to write each of them a note. I'm just going to put it under their door, and I'm just going to give them a Bible verse or just tell them I'd like to get to know them, or ask them if there's anything I could do, like rake leaves, go get them groceries, find toilet paper for them, anything. And that's just a really great way to think outwardly. So she was saying, how can I connect with other people, some who I kind of know, some who I don't even know, but I'm going to stay connected with people, and I'm going to serve, and it gets my mind off of myself and my struggles and helps me think about what other people are going through and how can I help them. And I feel like when we serve, we're blessed. It seems so paradoxical because it's like, well, how is that going to work? I'm giving. How do I receive through that? But I think most of us have experienced that, and it's just cool how that happens and how that works. So giving back, supporting other people, asking them how they're doing, looking at the struggles that other people are going through, and just staying connected. And then, of course, reciprocation. And that really just is a beautiful thing in the relationships where we're giving. A lot of times they're also just asking us back, like, how are you doing? And it gives us the opportunity to kind of get those feelings out in a healthy and productive way, because someone else is listening and they care and they're in it with you and you're not alone. And those things feel so good to know. And then 2 more things. One is remember where we find true peace and true hope. So I support medical technology and how important figuring out vaccinations are and figuring out what we can do to decrease what's going on with Corona. And I appreciate beyond measure the healthcare community and all that they're doing. I have personal friends who are working just day and night trying to help. I have one person who even comes to see me who is reallocated from a physical therapy position to a COVID floor. She was holding hands with people who are passing away. It's so, so important, and we appreciate that. But we also know that our hope isn't from finding a vaccination or a cure for the coronavirus or anything else. Our hope is in God, the creator of the universe, who loves each person and has special things in mind for them and purposes for them. And so for me, it's really important because I can get kind of off track and forget that for a minute for a variety of reasons, whether it's financial insecurity or whether it's health concerns or anything like that. But to recenter myself on recognizing that Christ, the God of the universe, he loves me, he cares for me, and he has a plan, and I can find a mooring in that. I can find true hope in that. So if there's anything I say today that I think is really important, that's my most important thing. The thing I encourage you most to do is find that true source of hope. And then just lastly, just closing, I want to make sure you guys know that we here at Care to Change, we want to be here for the community. So if you feel like, man, I'm trying to do these things, but I'm really in the middle of a struggle, for whatever reason, layer upon layer of grief, economic just strain that I don't know where, I'm going to be able to pay the mortgage next month, or any of those things that just feel overwhelming and you're battling it out. And I've been there. I've been to counseling myself before. Just sometimes we need to reach out to somebody who has an objective perspective and can help us. And please don't feel that there's anything to be ashamed of to reach out if you need to. That's what we're here for, and we love what we do. I feel like it's such a privilege, and I just appreciate so much when somebody reaches out to come in, and we're in this together. It's not like the counselor has all the answers whatsoever, but it's that, a person who's been trained who can kind of help navigate the way through and be support to you and give you a safe place to talk and hopefully help you come up with some ideas that can be beneficial. So please reach out to us, or if you know someone who's struggling, please let them know, because we want to be here to help in whatever way we possibly